Martha.
Hello.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm so nervous.
Oh no, oh no, don't be nervous. I've got your back this whole conversation. That's the
I
whole point.
know. I know. It's just like when like you exist like in social media and like me being in the course, it's just like, oh my
uh
God, like it's just the real person. Like it's funny. So I'm
Yay.
just processing.
I'm real life, I promise.
I know.
Well, what would be most helpful?
Yeah. So I have I did like the 6 month bundle of your course and I've been
Mhm.
working them through them and I'm sort of at a point where I have a marketing plan. Um, and I'm based in Portland. I see
Mhm.
some people in Oregon. I see some people from New York because I lived there for a decade and I did some training out there. But as I was working your way through the courses, like marketing feels like great, awesome. Like I'm really excited to get that started, but I feel like something didn't really feel quite solid about my niche when I was doing that course.
Mhm.
And I was hoping to talk it through with you a little bit because it feels like I just haven't. I know I don't. I'm a perfectionist, like type A, so don't want to be like too rigid, but like I'll something just feels like I haven't quite nailed it in the way that I would like. Um, and I'm like, am I just describing it in the wrong way, or does it need to be like two things that are kind of overlapping and I'm just not seeing it in the right way, if that makes sense?
Got it. Yeah, yeah. Tell me about it.
Okay.
What is your niche right now?
Yeah, yeah. So right now, I would say my website says, uh, so I've mostly work with adult individuals, and it's like focusing on stress, uncertainty, and self-esteem in relationships. It was relationships, work, and school, but now I'm just like relationships and work are like the main thing. So like
Mhm.
I like it when people come in with angst, either about a relationship in their life or if they're really like a goal driven, sort of motivated person. And they're like, I'm working my butt off on this degree. It means a lot to me. Like people for whom relationships and work are pretty important to their identity.
Mhm.
Um, and I've done a good job attracting those people so far. But I feel like an area of interest of mine has always been um, sort of excessive guilt and shame.
Mhm.
Um, and I kind of built out from that in describing my niche, and that was really helpful because like people who don't feel good enough, people who feel like they can't tell if they're being too hard on themselves or not hard enough. I really
Mhm.
like that. Um, but I also feel like there's a big area of interest where it's like people navigating conflict and communication in relationships where it doesn't seem that seems like almost separate in a way. So like I love my like type A driven people um, who are really like, who am I in terms of work and performance and productivity? But then I also really like people who are like, when my partner and I have a fight, we just freeze and we don't know what to do. And like, what does that say about me and like the family I come from and that sort of thing?
Mhm.
So maybe I was feeling so if they feel like either I can't pick one that feels like satisfying to me, or I can't sort of find two that seem to complement each other. Because I
Mhm.
know that's what you recommend, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I can see why this would be confusing when it comes down to like doing your marketing,
Yeah.
like because they are connected. Like I can see that there's connection,
Yeah.
but it's
Hmm.
not that the connection is maybe more potentially nebulous and not exactly what people know they're coming into therapy for.
Exactly. And I really want to be really like, I'm a writer, so I care a lot about the wording. And I'm like,
Mhm.
I really want to nail the language that speaks to people. And I think I've done a good job with that so far. But like, even when I looked at my profile or my website text the other day, I was like, ugh, like that doesn't quite feel like it. So
Okay.
that's kind of where I'm at.
So like the excessive guilt and shame, when you said that, like I like it hit me like
Hmm.
like but I'm also a therapist who's worked with a million people, right?
Yeah.
So does your ideal client suspect or know that their guilt or shame is excessive?
No, I think I do like obviously I love it if someone comes in with that insight,
Mhm.
but I've had I love people where it's kind of peeling back that onion where it's like, wow, I didn't have caregivers who could reflect what I was good at or who I was.
Mhm.
And that affects me in work where like I'm an overachiever, or that affects me in relationships where like I stay with people who can't meet my needs, you know? So like
Mhm.
that's a dynamic. And I really like helping people peel back that onion. If they come in with that, that's fantastic. But I definitely feel like I don't really I use phrases like feeling not good enough instead, because I feel like that's something that people are like, yeah, gosh, I just feel like I'd never like, you
Mhm.
know, my relationships always fail, or I can't seem to get to that place in work that feels like it'll be enough.
Mhm.
Because they're sort of lacking, like I'm analytically trained. So like they don't have enough good objects internalized, right? They don't have that
Mhm.
good feeling in them to help them um, uh, sus- to feel to sustain themselves, you know, when they're not getting that external feedback.
Yeah. And when you talk about the way you're describing it, what feels like it's missing?
Hmm. I guess I just feel like I don't want to be so I've done a lot of reading about guilt and shame and I like all of it, but at the same time I feel like I don't I also really like I don't want that to be like the defining element in a way. Like I feel
Mhm.
like there's sort of uh, I've seen it with people where it's so intense and so strong, and yet also I know how draining it is to work with people like that. And so
Mhm.
to feel that, to be with that self-loathing all the time, or to be be the majorative thing that I do, I'm like, okay, maybe I don't, you know,
Mhm.
um, maybe I don't want that to be like the main defining thing, because I love that work and I think it's so important, but also I like working with people on a spectrum where it's like,
Mhm.
you know, there are people who are sort of like struggling with that a bit in addition to other things. There are some people who have been so deeply interpersonally traumatized, where it kind of fills that sort of self-loathing fills the space.
Mhm.
So I like it in a variety. I work, I think part of me is like, oh gosh, to be in that all the time would actually be really hard. And maybe I don't want
Mhm.
that.
Yeah. So that spectrum of like not good enough light all the way
Mm-hmm.
down to self-loathing. Yeah.
Right, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
And I feel like there's obviously I have space for it, but I worry, but like if that's my thing, and maybe this is also some resistance, like the niche part, the part of the niche course that was most interesting was like maybe your niche is just you, and I was like, like I kind of had a reaction to that. Um,
Especially being analytically trained.
yeah, I know. Where I was like too much. And it was, but I think I'm like trying to market now. I'm like embracing it more and feeling more comfortable with the idea because, like, as I said, perfectionist type A. I have
Mhm.
so many notes around me that you can't see. Like, just um, how do I market to myself in a way that feels comfortable and almost like not too exposing, if that makes sense. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I think the secret is nobody else except anybody listening to this right now. But they don't have your
Yeah.
full name. But
Right.
nobody else knows it's you you're marketing to.
Right. Exactly.
And so really you can speak from both clinical experience and personal experience about what it's like to be in that ideal client's shoes because you've been
Mm-hmm.
there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like there are ways to talk about that type A. Like, do your ideal clients, when somebody's like, oh yeah, she's totally type A, are they like, yeah, yeah, me too? Or are
Mm.
they like, oh, really?
No, I think people, everyone I've worked with that who talks about it, I think people talk about it in different ways where they're just there's this one person who I've worked with a long time who always would talk about hustling and just being a
Mhm.
hustler. And that was their way of talking about being that sort of type A overachiever. Like I get up at 6 a.m. Some people aren't willing to do that, you know, sort of
Mhm.
vibe. And then there's other people that are just like, I'm unemployed and my work means everything to me and I don't know what to do with myself right now, you know? And so
Yeah.
so the type A language, actually, I, with my website language, something I did like was that I focused on, I felt like I came in and I said, um, there's this part of my website that's like, does this sound like you? And it's like, you care a lot. And it's like, maybe it's about a relationship, maybe it's about a goal, maybe it's about a job. And that framework felt really helpful. Like people who
Mhm.
are just driven to pursue this one thing or to make it as good as possible or to fix
Mhm.
it because it's really important to them and they feel like it's failing in some way. So, like
Mhm.
people who care, but who care really deeply about different things mostly about relationships and work is what
Yeah.
I tend to work well with.
Yeah. And you can give examples like um even in situations where it might make sense, you can't imagine yourself ever quiet quitting. Like it
Yeah.
just would not be
Oh, I
acceptable
hadn't
to
even
you.
thought of that. Oh my God, that's so good. Yeah. Oh my God, I'm getting on social media all these like lazy girl job accounts and stuff like that. And I'm like,
Uh-huh.
why is this being sent to me? And I'm like, oh,
Got
yeah.
it.
People struggling, yeah, struggling with like work-life balance, identity
Mhm.
outside of work, outside of the grind, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think about uh wow, I'm realizing like, oh yeah, I'm just talking about myself here. So here we go. But just like one of their greatest fears is unmet potential.
Oh, that feels so good. Yes, exactly.
And
Yes.
that can be in relationships or work or accomplishments. It can be in anything. Like
Uh-huh.
you don't want to quit the relationship that could be great.
Yeah.
Um,
This person could be the one. You could have that family that you want, you know. Yeah,
mhm,
exactly. Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I'm also talking about myself too, because as I was listening to this, I was like, I feel like I get this feedback in my life where people are like, gosh, you're so competent. You have it all together. Like you really just seem like you're on this path and you know what you're doing. And I'm like, I don't feel that way. I feel like, I'm just like, when a cat is like, or a dog turns a corner too fast and then they kind of spin out, like I'm like, that's how I feel like I'm operating in my life. Um,
uh-huh.
but I also have this part of me, like Buddhism is an interest of mine and like a meditation practice. So, and it's just really trying to strike that balance between like being present in life and sort of enjoying the small things, but also this intense pull from that side about like, am I doing enough to right to um, make the most of my potential in a way?
Hmm.
Yeah, that language really hit. So
Yeah. So we could
yeah,
just dig into a therapy session for me and I'll give you more. No, just kidding.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So I think unmet potential, I mean, it sounds like you do know your niche. Like your niche feels
Hmm.
clear to me.
Okay, yeah.
Um,
Maybe I'm just seeking niche validation.
maybe, which we all need sometimes, because
Yeah,
sometimes people seeking niche validation, I don't give it to them. And I'm
yeah.
like, oh, let's hone this. But
Okay, yeah.
it
Because I was
sounds,
worried it was too broad in a sense.
mhm,
Because some people I see their niches and I'm like, wow, that's like so specific, like so laser pointed. But for
mhm,
me, um, and maybe this ties back to the unmet potential thing. Like I sort of want to speak about it in a broad sense because I don't want anyone to be like I guess I want to speak to a potential client in a way that like they feel it and
mhm,
there's no criteria where they can be like, oh, that's actually not me or something.
mhm.
I
Well,
want
and
it to be as open, I guess.
yeah, it would be okay if some of them aren't them, because
Mm-hmm.
if most of them are,
Mm-hmm.
then that's close enough. Like, because you're
Right.
still going to speak more to their experience than anybody else's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, so I think like the unmet potential, the quiet quitting, the striving, the wanting more.
Yeah.
Do they have that same bit that you have around like mindfulness and awareness over this, that there is a slower way that may be more healthy for them, and that hustle isn't all it's chalked up to be, or are they not there yet when they see you?
Some of them are, honestly, some of them are there or in touch with that, but like they sort of need it reinforced in a way where I'm like,
Mhm,
that's fantastic. Like, my God, you're unemployed, use that time to do whatever you want. And then there's some people where it's like that it's more about it's very closed off and it's really like this is how I was told life works. These are the
mhm,
milestones, the markers I need to hit um, by this point in time. And it's more about like creating space and opening up. So I'm open to a range of that. And I kind of like it almost when it's less aware because creating that space, opening up that
mhm.
space for people is enjoyable for me.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
so speaking about that timeline too in your copy, about
Mm-hmm.
how like your clients are doing everything they can to reach the milestones that they deemed important.
Mm-hmm.
And some of them aren't happening. The ones that are more out of control aren't happening. in the way
Mm-hmm.
they'd hoped. Like that might be in
Yeah.
relationships. Like they haven't met the person that they
Mm-hmm.
wanted to settle down with yet. And they had planned to do that by 27 at the latest, you know, like
Mm-hmm.
giving those
Mm-hmm.
kinds of examples.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Can I ask you another question?
of course.
Do you think there's space in there for someone who's like, I'm on this path, but like the fit just doesn't like almost like someone, because what I also find interesting is people who are sort of on that path, on that conveyor belt of life, but are maybe sort of chafing, like,
Mm-hmm.
this is not like I was sold a bill of goods, or like, this is not, like I actually maybe don't know what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you think there's space for that in there too?
100%. Yeah.
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 Mm-hmm.
Because um, there's still that unmet potentials piece,
Mm-hmm.
of like, I'm afraid to bail on this career
Yeah.
because what
Mm-hmm.
about the unmet potential? But
Yeah.
also I'm afraid not to bail on this career because
Yeah.
what if my potential lies elsewhere?
Exactly. Like the sunk
Um,
cost fallacy.
mhm.
Yeah.
So I think there's room for that. There's room for like I loved your word chafing, like just
Mm-hmm.
I think speaking to that experience of like you've done everything you were supposed to do to get to where you are,
Mm-hmm.
and you are not satisfied. In fact, you're feeling pretty resentful.
Mm. Yeah, exactly. I really just need to pay more attention to my social media algorithm because the other day I got a video where this woman was like, I quit my corporate job at 35 to go teach English abroad, and stuff like
Hmm.
that. And I was like, oh, and now I'm like, oh, I'm just thinking about all these things I keep on getting sent like unconsciously.
Hmm.
So,
It's
yeah.
interesting. And
Mm-hmm.
and those are all places that are beyond, like that's where your clients will be after working with you, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
that
Right.
openness, but they're not quite there yet.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it might be listening to their stories of what their life was like before,
Mm-hmm.
some of these
Yeah.
folks. Um, and like I find that content really helpful just in general because I follow some of those as well. That's
Mm-hmm.
of like reminding myself that the rigidity in my head isn't
Mm-hmm.
like that's my own construct. It might have
Mm-hmm.
been like fed to me, but I'm the one who swallowed it and created it for myself, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, and that these constructs don't have to remain if they no longer work.
Yes. Right. Yeah. Okay. That's really helpful. I mean, even just looking at my notes, it feels like a lot more open than just like, because as I said before, like I've done, I've had the privilege of doing such great work with people who've experienced so much trauma that guilt and shame is so intense and so present. And at the same
Mhm.
time, this feels like um, more open and like that person could very well those people could still very well find their way to me if it feels like a good fit. And
Mhm.
because I know people externalize in work, in relationships, um, in all those ways. And at the same time, I feel like it feels also open as well to get like because I guess one thing I worry about in going into private practice is just worried about boring myself. Like
Mhm.
I want to have a niche that's open enough where I always feel like I'm going to get, it's the themes are similar, but like I
Mhm.
will really want variations on a theme just because
Yeah.
I know I need that variety and that novelty to
Mhm.
do my best work.
Yeah, yeah. And the
Hmm.
beauty is like we're all weird and different from each other,
Yeah.
even when we have the same problem. So
Yeah.
you'll still get variation. And people outside your niche too will still come to you because of word of mouth or
Hmm.
things like that. So you won't be stuck with just the same presenting concerns all the time.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, I feel you. And I think uh, there's also room to change your niche later if you decide you want to do that.
Yeah.
And that's less daunting once you've built a practice the first time because
Hmm.
you know what works.
Hmm.
And you
Yeah.
have a referral stream from the old niche that will continue to come in. So you can kind
Right.
of like be blended for a while and then majority new niche.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Awesome. Um, so I was wondering if you could help me with something really specific language wise.
Yeah.
So the hardest thing on my website was like the sort of the underneath when there's like your name and the name of your practice is
Hmm.
sort of that one sentence that
Yeah.
encapsulates your niche.
Hmm.
Um, I have nightmares about this. Like I just can't. I've been like I was like on it. It got to a point with me and my partner where I was like, we're picking three words And we're saying that in work and relationships, and it was like, I was like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's it for now. But like, I'm really wondering, even just, I'm interested in generating ideas about like what that could be,
Mm-hmm.
in a way that feels good, or at least better than it is now, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Let's see. Well, during this conversation, the word potential got you.
Mm-hmm.
What other words got you?
Chafing.
Uh-huh.
I'm thinking of chafing dish, which is not very different. Potential chafing. Let's see here. Quiet quitting, unmet potential. Definitely work primarily in work and relationships.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I think. So I don't know if sunk cost fallacy would have a way in there, but yeah, they're sort of, I mean, I do feel like the word uncertainty has always kind of spoken to me in thinking about my niche. I'm not exactly
Mhm.
sure how I would use it, but I feel like people who come to me are at this kind of professional or personal crossroads, and they're trying to
Mhm.
figure out, where to go from there.
Yeah.
Um, and that uncertainty is that something that people have just come in with a lot.
I'm thinking about how like your clients are really invested in
Mm-hmm.
both work and relationship. Like there's
Mm-hmm.
identity
Yeah.
investments.
Invested identity. Yeah. Hmm.
What about this might be one of those like where we say it one way, they hear it a different way,
Mm-hmm.
but like accessing full potential in work and relationships.
Mm.
Like our less healthy type A selves are going to be like, yes, I'm going to kill it. I'm going to grind. I'm
I
going to make
know.
this the best. When really it's like accessing potential, meaning that it includes boundaries and it includes, um, what is it? Like being more well-rounded.
Yeah, being right. Yeah, having more realistic, compassionate expectations for oneself and
Uh-huh.
for others as well. Yeah. Oh, I love that. Part of me is like, ooh, is that like tricksy of, I'm just think, I mean,
Right.
it, in a way, I'm like, but also I feel like your copy is kind of a Rorschach test in and of itself, and people are going to read into it whatever. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like, um, but yeah, I mean that does resonate for me in terms of, um, I think definitely feel like there's something there that I would maybe fiddle with, but I like that a lot. Yeah, accessing full potential in work and relationships as well. I
Yeah.
also
And
feel like that,
there's
yeah,
there's space to clarify too. Like in the rest of your copy, you can
exactly.
talk about how like I
Mm-hmm.
am not going to teach you to hustle and grind.
Mm-hmm.
That's not the goal of therapy, is to
Mm-hmm.
be as efficient as humanly possible in your life.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
but it's finding what you value, and putting your potential there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, value. Oh, yeah, value, potential, identity. Exactly. Oh, that feels so good
Good.
and
Nightmare
exciting.
thwarted. No more
This
nightmares.
this one for now. Um, yeah, okay. Oh God, it really is just me. It's so embarrassing.
It's all right. I mean, really, like that's most of us in our niches.
I
I mean, I love
know,
like reading people's websites, and I'm like, yeah, I believe it. Like, same. You can read my website, same.
I
Like,
know, I know. It's really, but it actually feels really good because I feel like it's good to have, um, I mean, it feels good just because it feels like right. I mean, the most like I said, I really do want people to, I just, yeah, wanting the language to be accessible, not wanting it to be clinical, not wanting it to
mhm.
be, um, something that, just wanting it to be something that people can see themselves in. So
Yeah.
yeah, it feels
And
really
also
good.
not wanting it to be dumbed down because
No.
your ideal clients probably like want to be spoken to like the intelligent people they are.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's a
They're
good combo because it's probably how you speak anyway, right?
right.
Instead of like feeling like you have to go down to fourth grade level.
No,
Um,
no, yes, exactly. It also makes sense that I'm just like looking at this, like I have an arts background and this is just kind of my personality type, but I like have naturally, even with my original version of my copy, I've been attracting a lot of like STEMmy people
uh-huh.
in which has been kind of fun and surprising because like I'm sort of I when I was in New York, like I worked with a lot of artist types and
Mhm.
now I'm just like, oh my gosh, but I'm like, oh no, this makes so much sense because we have so much in common.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
um yeah. So yeah, that feels really good. Okay. This wasn't quite exactly where I was expecting to end up, but it feels good and it felt
Good.
nice to have someone to talk it through with.
Yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad.
Hmm.
And also, as you think about it and you work on it and you get back to that space of like, oh, it's so embarrassing that this is me.
Hmm.
Like, I think to remember that, like, you're not ashamed of your clients for struggling with this version of shit, right? Like, this
Right.
is like, we've all got shit. This is just your version. Like, we all have our little branded experience. So, like,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Exactly. Okay. This is the best kept secret amongst all therapists that are
yeah,
sometimes our niche is just us. Okay,
yeah.
great.
Just write to yourself. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Okay, that's helpful. I mean, I think maybe I just had to sort of do a version where I was, yeah, maybe I just couldn't go there so quickly and I had to kind of experiment with like writing about a different version of me when really I feel like this is a more honest but also a more like um effective way of talking to that type of person.
Mhm.
So yeah, that feels really good.
Yay. I'm so glad.
Good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, when you get it all where you like it, post it in the Facebook group and get some
Okay.
feedback. And like,
Yeah.
I'm sure there are plenty more people like us in there who
Uh-huh.
can give you like, yes, this really resonated with me,
Yes.
or suggestions for anything that didn't. So
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I'll definitely do that. Yeah, I think I'm going to sit with the copy and do some rewriting and then put it out there because I also feel like it was holding me back marketing wise where I just feel like my niche like doesn't quite feel right. And so if I'm
mhm,
really like once I start networking, I really want to go pedal to the metal. So this
yeah,
and feel really confident in how I'm presenting myself.
awesome. Sounds great.
Okay, great.
Yay. All right. I'll see you in the party.
Thank you. All right, I'll see you around. Thank you so
All
much for
right.
your time.
Sure. Bye.
Bye.